it says we're streaming. This panel is not working. You know what? It's better to not see that anyways. Um, just for shits and gigs. No, it's not locking in. There we go. Content was removed due to violation of community guidelines. It's just a warning if it happens. What? What? What did I violate? The fuck are you talking about? The fuck are you babbling about? What I get striked for? Stricken for? Don't choke it. Anyways, I think we are live. I think we're going. So, got a bit of delay, so, I'm only doing this because I wanted to show a bit of, Unea and, the robber and the thief. I was going to play about like 10-15 minutes of it. Well, probably about, 10-15 minutes of it. Then I'll take a pause and talk about it. Then finish another 10-15 minutes of it and then talk about that too. The chat is open if anyone wants to talk or anything. If anybody joins in, I don't even know if anybody's watching this or not. But this way it kind of gives a little bit of a promo of what I can do. It can be watched anytime. I mean, if you want to watch it now. Are you kidding? I get better signal back in the back room? How is that possible? Anyways, I don't know. I'll find out whatever YouTube struck me about while we're doing the talk about the book. While the book's playing, I'll look that up, what they struck me for. I don't know what I did. I don't think I played any copyrighted material. I had permission to use like anything that I had, and anything else was my stuff. So I don't see how I couldn't have the right to use my videos and audio and stuff. That'd be insane. So let's go ahead and start the book. Okay, I'll pop in there for a second. I'll be in the upper right corner, upper left corner, and then I'll start the book up. And once the book goes, let it play. The Robber and the Thief. Written by Sean Battle. Edited by Michelle Battle. Part 1. My name isn't important. They never truly are, but you'll forgive me this indulgence, won't you? After all, I'm not done and I don't know who will read this. When I was younger, probably 9 winters, I met Alvin, who was about 7 or 8 winters. By the time we were teens, he cared for authorities about as much as me, which was to say none. Nothing personal, but I don't tell you what to do by use of armored and weapon force. Alvin lost his family to a house fire a year or 2 after we met, but he still lived in the burned-out shell of a home. Everyone in town just assumed he was taken in by family, but he preferred his shattered dwellings. I lost my family to illness around 13. I had been away at a relative's home for a few months, and I returned to nothing and no one. My father had been a farmer. He inherited a large plot of land, which had stone-walled in houses. It was much more than he could afford, as his father had been much more successful. Most of the family believes that my grandfather may have cursed the ground trying to take his wealth with him. Now, I enjoy my share, more than 3 people's share of intoxication, but I've never been so far gone as to believe nonsense like that. Looking for something artificial to explain the lack of rain when it had simply been a very long, bad seasons. My father was no great lord. He was only able to keep things going with indebted servants. They needed safe homes and fair treatment. They, in turn, worked the fields, tended to horses, wounds, and the needs of the farm and families, all of which part of ours. My father worked right beside them. He may not have been able to afford to buy their loyalty, but he had earned their respect. When I returned, I was lord of the manor, as I tried helplessly for months to fill my father's shoes. But I was drowning in his shadow and barely any wealthier than anyone who worked for my father. And they only pestered me with how your father did things and how I shouldn't drink so much. It was exhausting. Eventually, I had enough. I burned their contracts in front of them and set them free. The farm provided enough food that I didn't have to do hardly anything and still had too much. I had more than enough housing, and since we were outside the city, hence the walled farms, since we were in charge of our own security, there were no taxes. With the staff gone, there were no more payments to hand out, so my inheritance would stretch even further. And the extra houses were all empty, meaning Alton had a new permanent residence, one that didn't smell of smoke. Not wildfire smoke, anyways. We drank and abused away my birthright stipend in the coming years, mainly at the Burning Shield, a tavern run by a jovial man named Unea. Unea was an alchemist, and in all ways a true professional, but he never got into it for the money or to advance the craft. He only wanted to perfect herbal entertainments. His father wanted him to be a smith and continue the family trade, but all Unea wanted was to stay lifted up, shall we say. How could I not love someone as gone as myself? He converted his father's smithy shop into an inn of sorts, dingy, grimy, and perfect for passing out after a hard night's work at trying to erase thoughts. His father's blacksmith equipment was now fitted to handle the needs of alchemy. The fire that made hundreds of swords and shields is what was now forging newer and harder alchemicals to waste away on. Unea's father would honestly be proud of what Unea had become. Specialized expert. Unea still lived in the back. Like the rest of us who inherited it, we just moved up to the master bedroom. It's unfair, I 1000% agree. Now you inherit a place like my father's farm and tell me you would say no. I think taking Alton in helped me deal with my own good fortune. Let's be completely clear. Getting my family back and maybe asking if Alton could stay with us, I would trade in a heartbeat, but so far, no taking of my offer. We blew almost everything I had left on Mare's Milk, a horrible name to be sure, and you can blame Alton and I for that. Unea hated the name, but it rather quickly stuck. One night, he was so furious and demanding that we stop calling it Mare's Milk. I think he wanted to call it Unea's Jug or something equally ridiculous. There was a twinkle, a sparkle in Alton's eye, and he runs out the door. In a matter of minutes, he's back with two fairly large identical flagons. Maker knows where he got them. One in each hand and smiling ear to ear. One of these two is what we've been calling Mare's Milk. The other is actual Mare's Milk, and he sat them on the counter in front of Unea. Knowing we'd been taking too much all day already made the coming challenge even sweeter. The shield began to silence. If it doesn't look like Mare's Milk, simply drink the real Mare's Milk. Nothing will happen, and we will never call it that again. Alton never lost eye contact, and he never stopped grinning that fucking grin. Unea walked up to the two flasks, looking down into them one at a time. He started to bring one up to his nose. No smelling. On looks alone, he pinned the tail on. The quieting in the burning shield turning to silence, broken only with whispers and bets. He must have stared back and forth for 5 minutes before grabbing one of the mugs with any real confidence. If, Alton started, interrupting Unea intentionally. You chose correctly. You're going to swallow warm, freshly squeezed milk from a mare, made just for her colt. No problems there, is there? You know, it might even taste good. And he began to giggle a bit. But if you chose wrong, that is a large dose of Mare's Milk, even for you. Think of how much we've had already. Alton would be the chuckling death of you, which would make you laugh until the last second. I picture him in my deathbed making me laugh as I tell him, "Stop it, I'm trying to die. Come on, quit faking. We got things to do. Walking cures the soul." Things of that nature. The flagon stayed at Unea's lips. He held his breath, not letting a drop cross his tongue. If there's even the slightest hint of foul play, it would be called Mare's Milk forever. But he finally dropped the flask and stormed out through the back and into the living quarters to sulk. "Mare's Milk for everyone," Alton yelled without the coin to back up the exclamation. It was more of a proclamation of the final naming. The entire shield was truly burning with laughter that night. Honestly, Juno was the only one who minded the name, as before this night he got mare and stallion confused. Pervert. It wasn't long before people just ordered it by milk and raised arm anyways. Now, any alchemist learns to brew a healing potion first, as it's probably the simplest concoction to make. With your first lesson, you can heal a flesh wound, a lot of practice at that, and you can even heal a knife wound. That's about as far as I learned while away, but not as far as I'd take it. Completely unaware that my blood was dying and could use the very thing I was learning. I never could have made it back in time to save them. I've made my peace with that. I still cannot shake the feeling that the universe was taking from me the very life force that I would inevitably be taking from it, frequently. And who better to tax than the thief stealing so richly from life? A master alchemist could damn near bring you back from the dead, while Juno could probably heal you to death. Let that sink in. Alright, so that was the first 10 minutes, about 10 minutes of the book. Obviously, the story centers around Althan and the main character, the narrator, who has to be nameless. I had to explain. It's kind of a slow burn until they get to Argus. I'll admit that it is a little bit more. I'll go a little bit 20, another 10 minutes to make it a full 20 minutes to show that. I mean, I still think the story's good. It explains why. Sorry about that. Explains why they are the way they are. You know, I mean, there's these teenagers, and one of them, his family died in a house fire. Before this other guy who died, I mean, his family died in a house in you know, the sickness. Later on, he explains that all elves know healing spells. I'm sure that's going to cause some problems. Like how the hell could he know a healing spell? His mother, the elf, know the healing spell and not be able to heal the family. You're not taking into consideration the fact of what the magic is. The elves have a more natural magic, so it is healing. What happens if you heal a bacteria? They're new to the town, and since the time they've been there, like 3-4 years, there hadn't been a flu like this, a sickness like this go through. Now they needed something more of a antibacterial, which would be more like garlic. You know, I mean, garlic actually is an antimicrobial, antifungus type thing. That's what they really needed. And the staff was away because they were sick. Again, like I said, they weren't really able to pay him very much. They were sick, so he just, you know, they stayed away. But not before they caught it. The main character was in Torgin's Cove, learning how to make the healing potion. Well, healing potions in general. And one of them he learns is like, yeah, you know, there's a thing that flows through around here, you know, every like however so often. And we haven't had like a bad one come through in a while, but this is what you need to cure. It's just a simple potion. And so by the time the staff does get back to the family house, she's already tried to heal them, making the virus, like, or whatever the bacteria, whatever it is making the sickness. It's an organism. It's also healed, also and stronger. So what they have to fix it and to stop it, that doesn't stop it anymore. So when he gets back, family's gone. I wanted to explain that, like, because it's not like, you know, like, I had explained why these two people could go so long being complete assholes, and no one just, like, no parent kicked the shit out of them. No, one of them inherited a farm that has everything that he needed to survive. He knew how to tend to the farm and whatever, and he barely had to do anything. He knew how to keep it going, but you know what I mean? He's seen his dad work out there. He's worked out there enough to know. He also knows that he doesn't need all that fucking food. The only reason he needs all that fucking food is because all the fucking people there. So he sends them away. The inheritance he inherited, which which wasn't a whole lot, but suddenly without paychecks to hand out, and then he's got extra housing. Alton was staying in a burned out shit home, and when he got to the narrator's home, he decided to sleep in the barn. And there's a whole scene, like if it ever gets to the stage where it ever gets down to a series or anything like that, I wanted to have there's a funny scene that happened there, but I erred on the side of brevity. You know what I mean? I was going to tell that whole story in there. There are a lot of side tangents I wanted to tell, and you'll probably tell while I was about to go on one. Let's continue on a little bit and see if anyone's interested, if anyone's even watching this. I have no idea. Let's fucking keep going. The Robber and the Thief. Written by Sean Bold enough to steal at the burning shield. As far as I take it, completely unaware that my blood was dying and keys the very thing I was learning. I never could have made it back in time to save them. I've made my peace with that. I still cannot shake the feeling that the universe was taking from me the very life force that I would inevitably be taking from it, frequently. And who better to tax than the thief stealing so richly from life? A master alchemist could damn near bring you back from the dead, while Juna could probably heal you to death. Let that sink in. While he truly loved myself and Alton, it never stopped him from taking our money. However, he did give us a bit of grace when we would come up short or couldn't pick pockets. A new hobby of ours as our resources began to run low. We'd be pretty good at it in no time. By 17 winters, our finances had truly run thin, and I could feel the date of officially becoming a man inching closer. Like a decision I would soon have to make or even had a choice in. Like a waiting predator sneaking up at any moment. I had to change something before I joined my family in the afterlife. It was only after my free ride finances had run out that my adventures truly began. All the guards knew us by now, not by our right names. We're not stupid. He went by his brother's name and I my father's. I could have used one of my sister's beautiful names, but that might have drawn suspicion. I don't think there was a pocket we hadn't picked in our shitty little town, and then we blew it all on temporary oblivion. When we were bold enough to steal at the burning shield, only once or twice did we ever disrespect the shield, or any pub or tavern. Instead of sticking to our friend the dark, we always chose a merry couple. Neither Alton nor I were hard on the eyes, but that wouldn't have mattered. We'd throw smiles or winks at the wives. They in turn would defend our innocence if we got caught or suspected. And on more than one occasion, a woman would even claim to know us from youth. Often the gentleman would buy us drinks to apologize. It wasn't that we were so attractive, but we knew what these husbands had forgotten. Their wives simply wanted to be seen again. To not be their husband's property or burden, but simply be seen as the beauties they are, again. That feeling was worth all the gold and silver in their husband's pockets, or his hard toil at everything besides her. I'm not ashamed to say we used that window, and many of those women left that window open for Alton to come back, knowing the scheme. I refused that window. I won't take that which does not give itself to me. Still 3 months from my adulting, and June had produced an incredible batch of official mare's milk. He had finally embraced the name as dizzy-eyed stragglers from all over Unea came to shitty little Morrington just to try his powerful creation. One of his key ingredients was the Impinal cap. It's a hauntingly pale pearlescent mushroom with iridescent black spores on the bottom. These spores must be completely cleansed away. For beginners, a few remaining spores may not be so bad, but for veterans like ourselves who are used to the purity of Juna's jovial jugs, it was a disaster of a nightmare. For our purposes, I'll assume you're a frequent user like myself. First, the harvested spores allow for more caps to be grown, but second, Even a very few left in the gills under the cap, and you will be sick. After one bad batch purchased from a competing tavern, Mare's Milk's reputation in our town had drawn the attention of several would-be competitors. We never bought from anyone but Juna again. The two of us sweating and puking for nearly 5 straight days as we ended up still detoxifying instead of blissfully passing 8 wonderful hours just to save 2 gold per bottle. Bottles that we now had to throw away. We made sure that tavern now only sells Juna's extras, when and if there are extras to sell. After we recovered, we paid the owner a visit, precisely at closing time. We made sure to wait long enough that all the patrons had well cleared off. We didn't even ask for our money back because it wasn't even about that by now. The owner turned the key to lock up for the night. He then spun around to go to his overly large and underdeserved home, only to run into 2 hooded and angry, almost adults threatening to burn his establishment to the ground if anyone in Morrington even reports getting sick off of bull's milk. Again, you can blame Alton and I for that. We then let him know that we knew where he lives and that the building was just as flammable as his business if we had to guess. While Mare's Milk wasn't our only vice, it definitely was one of our favorites, especially mixed with a round of Kelweed or Nightmare. Either way, this batch of milk was nearly perfection, such was Juna's skill. Were he still alive, I'm sure Mare's Milk would be known throughout all kingdoms, but death comes for us all. I would check in over the years, returning home or such, and then one day, no more Juna. The burning shield, his family crest, and the building, once his father's forge, is now the wandering inn, as he himself had no offspring. The once flop beds for heads like Alton and myself were now snug individual rooms for adventurers like I have become. The shield's once grime, now replaced with just a safe place to lay your head and get a good clean meal. Fortunately, when I last saw him, I cleared the shelves of milk and stored it at the farm, which I now call Mareth. Juna said it'll keep for over 2 decades, and I don't use like I once did. Which, of course, takes me back to my adulting. We stayed gone on this wonderful batch for nearly a week, and the come-down changed everything. The backside of a bender like this is most likened to waking from a dream you were sleepwalking. You have full recollection of every detail that transpired, no matter how insane. Now clearly separating the dreams from facts. And with a violent sun rising, you suddenly are back to reality where everything has gone wrong, where hunger and poverty live. You want back in the dreams so bad, but too much and you will be healed to death. We've seen it happen. Healing potions would only make things worse. You'd almost have to poison the person, but we never figured out with what. No matter how violent the transitioning shift, I had to pass the time with Kelweed and ground pesset, which is a miserable substitute, but it does keep the sickness away, as by now we were using whatever as long as we could hold the reins. Although sometimes you have to ride the horse to know if you are guiding it or, well, if you even have to question, jump off, and take the dust up then and there. Alton, barely able to cope, much like myself, stumbled home to Mareth on his own concoction. I tried it once. It wasn't bad, but it didn't keep off the sickness from me. But Alton always had a different constitution than I. You know, I've only seen him get violently sick once that wasn't due to bad alchemy. Unfortunately, it wasn't an infrequent occurrence for me. Trying to keep up, I guess. I would learn my limits and stick to them soon enough, and I learned so much more once I learned my limitations. But for now, alone, I stumbled backwards through a door just off the market square. Before I could get my footing or figure out where I was ushered back out to the streets by 3 slight yet surprisingly strong men. I was thrown into a patch of dirt and grass beside the building. Just as I rolled over to the blinding sun, a shadow blocked out the rays of my nemesis. You have zero purpose, do you? And then he called me by name. Something only Alpha knew now. By now I had many other names I was known as. Nicknames, pet names, and celebration names from every pub, inn, and tavern in Morrington, although at the time there was only one of each. As I opened my mouth, he raised one finger to his lips, the details for clear identification still muffled by shadow. You can't enter here like this. No, you need to have a purpose to enter here. Respect for yourself. Why? My eyes blinded by the sun that shone around the vacant caused by the shadow that is the voice talking to me. Because you can't respect others if you don't respect yourself, he said, snarling and looking me up and down. The light still his friend behind his cloak's hood, hiding his face besides trace glances of details, but never enough to pull a full image together. So you birthed me? You have any say about who and what I am? You know me because you know my name? I roared, trying to hide my fear, foolishly drawing the attention of a nearby guardsman who immediately began heading our way. The shadow man leaned in. You're clever, you're broken, the dark is your ally. There's not a pocket you haven't picked and no citizen you haven't driven to blind hatred in some form or another. He spoke in hurried and whispered words. But if you want in there, you have a long journey ahead of you. With that, he threw a small, tightly rolled scroll in my lap. So yeah, that's the first 18, 20 minutes of The Robber and the Thief. I wrote it, I drew the map, I did the video, and I did the audiobook. I thought about putting my music in the background, but I ultimately decided against that because I didn't want to pour too much work into something that I wasn't paying attention to. So, I mean, it's free. The PDF is free if you want to go to Facebook and look for Unea. It's the one with the hand-drawn map. I don't know if you saw the hand-drawn compass. I don't know if you saw the compass on the map. But that's the one. You can get the PDF and read along yourself if you don't want to hear my voice saying it. You can just get the map and follow along at your own pace. It's your own pace, it's your own way, whatever you want, whatever you feel like. And if you get, like, you hate the way I do it, but you want to hear more about the story, I have an audiobook. There's just the audio files. Oh, there you are, right there. Why I keep the right there. I forgot to move you down there. So the audio files, they're up there for free. PDF is for free. The videos on YouTube for free. There's a playlist that has all 5 parts. It's a total of 10 hours. It's chapterized. Every 10, 15 minutes, max about 20 minutes, I put in a chapter. So that way you can find your way back in there and get that done. I just didn't feel like actually try to get much of this and hit you guys. I might want to just go ahead and turn that one off. If I move too much, it's going to fucking blind. Yeah, see? So let's just go ahead and wipe that one out. As long as it's just lighting my back. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. That's enough. A bit of mystery. So, but yeah, if you tuned into this and watched this, I really appreciate it. We're hitting about 30 minutes, and I'm just going to go ahead and bail out now. If you'd like to listen to the rest of it, it's all up there for free. You can listen to it. You can download the PDF. You can download the map. I have a book of poetry. I also have my short story, The Survival Guide, on Unea's Facebook page. Feel free to check that out. Like I said, it's got the hand-drawn compass. And the other one's like the UN. Holy shit, you know what I mean? That's crazy as hell. But yeah, I appreciate you tuning in. If you tuned in, and even if you didn't tune in, I appreciate you being wherever you are, doing whatever you're doing, and being a part of this world. So you guys have a great night, and